sports you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trailblazers return to action tonight. They'll be facing off again against the Dallas Mavericks. Feel like they've been doing this back-to-back thing a lot this year in the NBA. Tip-off is set for 5:30. Pregame coverage begins right here on 620 Rip City Radio at 3 o'clock. Pac-12 hoops last night. The Oregon Ducks take down the Washington Huskies. About time they did that in any sport. 76-74, while on the Palouse, the Cougs take down the Beavs in the battle of the remaining Pac-2 team, 65-58. Oregon is now 3-0 in Pac-12 play. Beavs dropped to 1-2. NBA talk with friend of the program, Kurt Heelan from NBC Sports. He joins us in hour number 3, but it is a Feel-Good Friday. It's still a Football Friday, and it's a Fancy Coffee Friday. And we get started right now at 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Friday. It is RCM. I'm your host, Justin Myers. Super producer, friend of the safety partition on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Friday. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. Watched some college hoops last night. Oregon looks pretty good. Looked pretty good. So we'll dive into just the difference in college basketball now and college basketball 10 years ago is astonishing to me. It's astonishing to me the difference in the two sports. Now, some of that might be what's going on Monday night with one particular football team. But there was a time not that long ago where when Oregon would go to Seattle to play not just football, but when Oregon would go to Seattle to play basketball at the Alaska Airlines Arena, a.k.a. Heck Edmondson Pavilion, it was a battle, regardless of whether Washington was good or not, because obviously there is always a laundry hatred between the two schools, right? You are wearing purple, you are wearing green and yellow. We do not like each other, and even if Washington was mediocre, even when they were bad at basketball, like that was always an environment. And I'm watching last night, and it's like, Husky fans are like, we're good. We're good. We're in the national title game on Monday. We got bigger fish to fry. Yeah, we could go to this basketball game. And Washington's not bad, but it used to be on the West Coast, right? Washington was a tough place to play. Back in MacArthur Court was always a tough place to play. At times, Gill was a tough place to play. Those times were few and far between. That old barn could rock, though, every once in a while.
It could.
They're few and far between, though.
Especially in, like, the 80s. A little before my time. 80s. Even
Gill Coliseum in the 80s, man.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I only hear about it through legend, Justin. But, the other thing.
It was so hot in there.
Oh, yeah.
Both Gill Coliseum and MacArthur Court, because obviously I watch a ton of games at MacArthur Court, but, like, Gill Coliseum, that old barn would get it's hot.
It's like,
physically, like it's like
uncomfortable.
Turn down the third. It's like we don't have air conditioning. In here. It's winter.
Yeah,
we have a furnace.
Yeah, I've had to Gill is a big empty open building quite a bit of the time, Justin. So whenever there's things for me to go down and go do in Corvallis, oftentimes media are like, just go to Gill, right? Go work in Gill, kind of a thing. And even in the off times, it can be hot. But back to your point on the student section and all those things, back in college, Justin, was there a better moment being at a basketball game? And you probably remember this a little bit from when you used to go to Mac Court. And Husky fans couldn't say this last night, so Oregon got the last laugh. But I always thought as a fan the coolest thing, whether you were a 10-year-old or a student section or whatever, was when your football team won, and then your basketball team won, and you could get your just like
Yeah,
football.
that was always a good one.
You know what I mean? That one stands out big time as like a huge. It's like, oh wait, did we beat them in football? No, okay, can't say that. You know what I mean?
That was always a good one because that's the one everybody seems to. But I'm thinking about like those were battles up in Seattle when Oregon would play there because it was like a legitimate tough place to play. Now I think there might be also some apathy with their head coach up there, just like in Corvallis, there might be some apathy. No offense to Wayne Tinkle, but I don't know if he does an awful lot to excite the fan base. But even like, how much of I watched the first half of the Oregon State.
That was the good half.
Washington State game. That was the good half for the Beavs. But even like Pullman, like that place used to be a tough place.
Oh, there was nobody there
to go in and get away. Nobody's there.
Oh, wow.
Like nobody's at that game.
It was funny. There was because Ernie Kent was calling that game with Ben Creighton, the Oregon State one, and obviously Ernie Kent, former coach at Washington State. There was a time when he's like, "Man, it's looking a little empty in here." And you're like, I guess. I mean, here's Thursday night, 8 p.m. on the Palouse. Can you blame too much for a lack of crowd there?
But here's what I'll say about a guy like Ernie Kent. I'm glad you brought up Ernie Kent. So Ernie Kent, obviously, when he took over the Ducks in the late 90s, Oregon had no basketball tradition other than back in the 70s. There was a group called the Kamikaze Kids that they played in.
What about the Tall Furs?
Sorry, my fault. 39. Took a train to Chicago to beat Ohio State, and the Tall Furs won the first ever NCAA tournament. And then Oregon basketball was kind of, and then a guy named Dick Harder came in, and he introduced this high-intensity defensive brand of basketball, taking charges, diving all, and they were the Kamikaze Kids. But that was right in the middle of the reign of UCLA, right? UCLA reigned supreme back then with John Wooden. And for a while, through the 80s, Oregon basketball was it was bad. And they'd be lucky to make the NIT. Didn't make the NIT an awful lot. 90s, some things start, and keep in mind, this is all pre-swoosh life in Eugene, right? Nike's not even really a thing. Like, they got some shoes, but for the most part, like into the 90s, a guy named Jerry Green took him to the NCAA tournament in like 95, 96. And I was like, this is the best. They lost to Texas opening round. But like, and I'm not saying this to be mean. Brendan, you understand this. Like when you grow up as a kid and you're watching March Madness and your team's never in it. And that was me in the 80s and the 90s until finally Oregon gets over the hump. Well, as it happens in sports, right? Jerry Green takes Oregon to the NCAA tournament, and Tennessee's like, you can take Oregon to the tournament. Boy, you could do some. And so they hire him away. Jerry Green's out of town. So 97, they hire Ernie Kent. And Ernie Kent took Oregon basketball to places it had never seen before. He also created an expectation monster that he ultimately couldn't live up to that led to his firing. But one thing that looking back now with clearer vision, that I appreciate about Ernie Kent, he went out and he pounded the pavement, not only on the recruiting trail, but to the fan base. He sold the program to the fan base. Sometimes he oversold it, which again led to that expectations monster, right? He would come on any show that would have him on. Even came on my goofball show back in, and he was like, look, these guys are great. We're going to do some big things. Get out to MacArthur Court. Come watch us play. And he was out, and he would sell it to the fan base. And a couple of times he had a very exciting brand of basketball. But he would go out and he would sell it. And I look like in Corvallis right now, and Brendan, you know this because you are an Oregon State legacy person. I'm sure your parents and your grandparents probably told you about those days when that old barn in Gill Coliseum was rocking. When they got up to number one in the country in the 80s, right?
Yeah. They were. My dad loves to say he was The fire marshal would never allow it these days, as he loves to say. They were sitting on the steps.
On the steps?
As the announcer said.
Also, you used to be able to smoke inside there,
Oh,
too.
I know.
You used to be able to smoke in there.
I know, Ralph Miller was all over that.
Ralph Miller would smoke in practice inside the Coliseum.
But no, my whole family, like, that was, you mentioned, like, it's the opposite for me. Like, you mentioned Oregon has no basketball cultural history. That's all I grew up knowing about was, the fact that Terry Baker played in the, won the Heisman Trophy and played in the Final Four in 1 year. And Oregon State's had Slats Gill and Ralph Miller and, AC Green and all these dudes, right? And it's funny because that was the story that I heard above all else was what it was like when the whole old barn, as you said, started chanting, number one.
Yeah.
And, like, it's been pretty hard to imagine that
they've never been able to
recapture
that at all.
No, and so many
coaches.
I
think one of the biggest reasons why is obviously there are certain resources that are lacking. It's just it's an economic issue. But from the time I believe Ralph Miller ultimately retired, I believe they hired a guy named Jim Anderson,
top assistant.
He was the top assistant. And
did not work out.
No, because usually if you're a top assistant for a long time, there's a reason why you're not a head coach somewhere else. There's usually a reason why they hired Jim Anderson. There was a time in the 90s where they were actually on the way up. They had this guy named Corey Benjamin, J.B. Bickerstaff, who's now an NBA coach. He was on that team. Carson Cunningham, I believe, was the guy who was on that. Like, they had a team that was real close. And then coach went away, players transferred away. Then they hired Jay John, and Jay John.
Not John Jay, the MLB player.
Not the MLB player, but Jay John. Pretty milquetoast. Right?
I think there were actually, Justin, two coaches in between.
Probably was.
Yeah,
probably guys I'm not even thinking
Eddie
of.
Payne and Richie McKay.
Boom.
Were in between those. They were both mediocre too. Jay John, then to old C-Rob. Oh, yeah. Did you know, Justin, who his brother-in-law was?
Yes, and they went out and hired the president's brother-in-law. Actually, they hired the presidential candidate's brother-in-law.
This is true. He was not POTUS.
And
yes.
it looked as though when Craig Robinson was there, it was like, oh, there are some things in motion here. As it turned out, Craig Robinson wasn't all that interested in coaching. He was good at recruiting. From what I understood, didn't spend a lot of time in the practice facility.
Hey, he can recruit with the best of them, man. I'll tell you.
But didn't really spend a lot of time with he would get the guys on campus, then didn't spend a lot of time with them. Spent a lot of time in front of cameras, though. Like,
hey, man, it's all in the family.
A lot of time on cameras.
Like, hey, he learned to be a good speaker, okay?
You got to coach your team. And then they went out and got Wayne Tinkle. And, it's funny because, like, where's the charismatic, we're going to change things, I'm going to rally this fan base. Like, that's, like, where's that guy at? That's, back in the 90s, like, that's what Oregon needed. That's what Ernie Kent was. He came in and was like, we're going to go to NCAA tournaments. We're going to win championships here. And it was like, okay.
Yeah,
well, in 3 years, he did. They won the Pac-10, and it was like, we didn't think that was possible.
Yeah, I'll give it's changed so much now because I'm not there, and I think apathy, I think, is what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Probably set in a little bit, but Justin, I was a freshman Wayne Tinkle's first year, right? Craig Robinson got let go my senior year of high school, and it was awesome to be like, wow, new coach, all this. And I give Wayne Tinkle credit because back then, that was what, 14, 15? He did hit the ground running. I remember when he went out to the quad and was giving out free pizza and this.
You got to do that stuff.
He went to frat houses with, like, energy drinks and stuff. And, like,
there's a bunch of Red Bull kids.
Yeah, like, and I remember being like, wow, this Tinks Time guy, like, he's going to the students, trying to get them, because under Craig, it was bad at the end there.
Yeah, because he didn't want to be on campus.
Right, it was bad. Like,
the only time he was on campus was actual game day, and it was like, other than that, it's like,
true. But
dude, you're just you're traveling, living the life of like a kind of a political celebrity. You got to coach your team, homie. But like, you got to do it. It seems silly, but like that's the kind of stuff. And coach at Washington before Hopkins.
Oh, Lorenzo
Romar.
Yeah.
Like, Lorenzo Romar.
Liked him a lot.
For all of his faults, that gym was packed for big games because he would go out and he would sell it. Not just in media. He would go, like you said, he would go on campus. He was like, hey, free pizza for the first 200 kids in line. Get your student tickets. We need you got to do that stuff. And it's like, I don't see Wayne Tinkle doing any of that stuff. And maybe
At one point he did.
Yeah. But yeah.
I'll say that.
Anyways, all that being said, watched the Pac-12 hoops last night. Never going to be what it was. Makes me sad. Makes me pine for the good old days, but it's never going to be like it was.
So do you long for the days of Alan Crabb at Cal or, the Lopez twins at Stanford,
So,
Brandon Rule, Klay Thompson?
let me tell you, I
lament those days.
I had a former TV show called The Bridge. It was a pretty good show.
Some said it was
and
really
The
good.
Bridge, we also got our own little podcast where I would do these one-on-one interviews, and I got a chance to interview Channing Frye. And everybody at my former place of employment thought I was going to sit there and talk to Channing Frye about the Blazers and his time with the Blazers and what about the Brandon, all I did was talk about mid-2000s Pac-10 basketball. It was the best. And they were like, what? You did that for 45 minutes? Like,
yes.
You don't even know. So, yes.
So good. Such
did
a good
that.
time.
All right. We've blown past our time, but we still have to continue tradition. And maybe some of you are struggling a little bit with your New Year's resolutions. We're only 5 days, and maybe some of you are like, boy, it's not quite feeling. Well, if you did it, you grinded it out, you got through the first week of 2024, it's time to treat yourself with a little upgrade in your caffeinated beverage, a little thing that we call Fancy Coffee Friday. Let's go.
You've waited all week. It's time to treat yourself for Fancy Coffee Friday.
That's right. I got through my root canal yesterday, and I am having a fancy coffee to celebrate that accomplishment. And you know what? Maybe all of you finally, from 2 weeks ago, put a pin in it, and let's circle back around the holidays. And now you're circling back to about 57,000 emails. And you know what? You grinded through it, and you got to the Friday. And here we go. Up ahead, a glorious weekend. It may not be another 5-day weekend like we had with Christmas. It may not be another 3-day weekend. But regardless, it is a glorious weekend ahead. We got NFL football, Week 18 coming up. We got basketball on the horizon. We got a national championship game coming up on Monday. And you know what? You guys have earned your fancy coffee because I just have a gut feeling we have the hardest working audience in all of sports radio. That's right. So cheers to all of you. Upgrade your coffee this morning. Treat yourself. You've earned it with a little Fancy Coffee Friday. Cheers to all of you. We did it. We got through it. Got through the root canal. Brendan's beat COVID. He beat COVID this week. It's all about overcoming boundaries on this particular program. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk some NFL. Week 18 drama. Drama in Week 18 in the NFL. We'll talk about it next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, here we go. We got it, Week 18 NFL action. And we've got scenarios. So what's the scenario? We've got scenarios. And I picked this up off of ESPN. This is very complex, very complicated. I'm going to attempt to try to simplify it in certain things. Games to watch, games to pay attention to, especially with the Seattle Seahawks, who currently are sitting at 8-8. They are on the outside looking in after the loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here's the scenario right now for the Seattle Seahawks. If Green Bay wins, they're done. Now, the Seahawks are playing the Arizona Cardinals. If Green Bay wins, Green Bay is playing the Chicago Bears. Green Bay wins, it's over. And the Seahawks are done. So the Seahawks, have to beat the Cardinals. And they need a Green Bay loss or a tie. They could tie the Cardinals. And Green Bay loses plus Tampa Bay, who is playing the Carolina Panthers, good luck with that, has to lose their game. Or the Seahawks could tie, plus Green Bay loses to the Bears, and New Orleans also loses. So there's the playoff scenario right now for the Seattle Seahawks. So currently, the Green Bay Packers are listed as 3-point favorites against the Bears. Bears are 7-9, by the way. Is it weird that, like, Brendan, this entire football season, like, we have been treating the Bears like they are a 3-win team. They're 7-9. They're not terrible. They're not good. They're obviously far from the playoffs, but they're 7-9. They're only a 3-point dog. Where's this game at? Is it at Lambeau? Yeah. They're only a 3-point dog on the road, so this is kind of a pick'em game. So, interesting scenario for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we mentioned it yesterday, and Brendan, I think you brought this up in Make or Miss. If you're a Seahawk fan right now, and you get the truth serum, not the what you tell your friends, but you get the truth serum, do you want to make the playoffs? I still believe you do. Feel free to disagree with me. Without an NFL lottery, without a lottery in place, if you're not drafting in the top 3 in the NFL, you have trust your talent evaluators. You get a need pick somewhere. The middle of the draft is not the death knell. I'm saying that right? Maybe. That it is in the NBA, right? Worst thing to be in the NBA is what the Blazers were forever, which is out of the lottery, but not in the championship. I don't think it's that way in the NFL. I still believe if you've got a shot, if you get rolling, you get into that dance, it's still better for your organization to make the playoffs than to miss it. Because if you're not in the top 3, because what are you fighting for at, let's see, where's this? I believe the Seahawks would pick somewhere in the teens. If you lose in the first round of the playoffs, you're still picking in the higher teens as opposed to maybe around 13 or 14. I don't think this draft is this loaded. Do you know what I mean? Without a bunch of ping pong balls. And the Seahawks they've got some concerns at the quarterback position, which we talked about yesterday. So I'm going to pose this question back to you. We kind of danced around it. And you might think I'm nuts. You might think I have gone plumb loco. You might think, shout out Cypress Hill, I have gone insane in the membrane. That was an awesome song, by the way. Let's say you're the Seattle Seahawks, and let's say Geno Smith does not play well, and you lose to the Arizona Cardinals. You lose to the Arizona Cardinals. You have a chance to make the playoffs, and in back-to-back weeks, you lose at home to the Steelers with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. And by the way, quite frankly, it wasn't that close. So you lose to Mason Rudolph, and in Week 18, with everything on the line, you lose to the Arizona Cardinals. I think it's pretty clear they got some They got some quarterback issues. They've got maybe not issues, but maybe some questions and concerns. Russell Wilson's going to get let go by the Denver Broncos. He's going to get let go. He is going to be cut. They're going to take the cap hit. That's why he is being sit out these last 2 weeks, because of that injury guarantee. The Broncos can't afford, and with the way that the Broncos handle this, there is no way that Denver and Sean Payton and Russell Wilson patch things up. They're moving on, moving forward, and I think Russell Wilson is also probably, even though he's going to say all the right things, he's like, yeah. This whole thing in Denver, it did not work out.
Does it help, Justin, with the finances of it when you have the richest owner in all of professional sports running your franchise?
But Brendan, a cap hit is still I hear you, but a cap hit is still a cap hit. You know what I mean? Like you can have all the money you want. You have dead cash, and it's like you can't sign anybody.
So you're content to tank that year then? Get a good draft pick out of it?
I'm very curious to see what the Broncos do. Yeah, I'm very curious because they have been through a roller coaster of emotion this year. Year started off terrible, right? Then they started trading off players. And I remember I was talking to Chad Doing, obviously, because he knows a ton about the Broncos. And I'm like, what are they doing? He's like, yeah, they're punting this year. Well, then they started winning games. And they win like 5 in a row. They beat the Chiefs. And after that, they're like, all right, Russ, you're winning games. But this injury thing, even though Russell Wilson, I think, has missed, 3 games in his NFL career?
Really
3.
that low? Wow.
I think it's 3 games in his NFL. The broken finger he had in Seattle was the first time I think he'd missed a game. He didn't miss starts. He's the most durable quarterback. Say what you will about Russell Wilson. Dude shows up to play. He was like 3 or 4 games in his NFL career. They're like, yeah, this injury clause, whatever. So they're not even getting a divorce. They weren't together long enough they're breaking up, right? It's like you've talked about with your decision maybe to go to the gym. It's like we either got to commit or we got to. It's like,
oh, and I had a moment yesterday with that, Justin.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
I had a moment where I'm like, okay, I have an hour.
Yeah, you do.
I can watch Game of Thrones, or I can go to Planet Fitness.
Hey.
And I sat there and I said,
"Can I tell you something?"
And I'll admit I didn't commit. So I gotta.
Still got 9 days. We got 9 days. I have put the deadline the same as it is in the NFL draft for
like the Cam Ward deadline.
Yes, that is January 14th is your deadline, where we're going to decide whether or not we are going to
commit or get out.
Yeah, we're going to find something else. But we have the technology. You could do both. You go work out, and
it's true.
I don't know if you can watch Game of Thrones though, and that's a tough watch.
Yeah, probably not. You kind of need to pay attention, and focus. I've learned.
We're gonna dive into this later on. Maybe not today. Maybe next week. But
we'll check back on
that. You are into the Game of Thrones universe now, which is
that's what COVID.
It's a whole world to dive into. All right, back to the NFL. So the Broncos are going to end up cutting Russell Wilson. They're going to pay him a ton of money. Russ is going to get a good chunk of change, which means, just like we have seen with certain NBA guys, he can go sign for anyone really cheap. Right? He could sign a team-friendly deal. Do you run it back in Seattle? We talked about this for maybe 30 seconds yesterday. I thought about it more. If there was ever a coach in the NFL that could pull this off, it's Pete Carroll. I firmly believe it. If there is ever a coach in the NFL that could pull this off and could not only sell it to the fan base, it's Pete Carroll. Because you remember that terrible, horrible, no good, very bad Super Bowl that the Seahawks lost. The one that Seahawks fans do not like to talk about. Not the one they lost to the Steelers, which they're still mad about, by the way, but the one that they lost to the Patriots that they do not like to talk about. Now, if you remember in that game, and the interception that was thrown, Brendan, what was the substance of that whole debate? It was the Seahawks wanted to get Russell Wilson the MVP. They didn't want – Marshawn had disciplined things all that season. Worst kept secret in Seattle. It's like, oh, he's not feeling so good. It's like, yeah, he was suspended for a quarter. Like, he didn't play the first quarter. First snap of the second quarter, he missed it. He missed multiple team flights that year. Marshawn Lynch did. And it was becoming a bit of a problem. He was fined multiple times. You know, I'm just here so I don't get fined. He was fined multiple times because he just would leave after games and not do his media obligations and all that stuff. So the Seahawks and Marshawn Lynch were having a bit of a problem, but Marshawn was going off in that Super Bowl. And he was a yard away from scoring that touchdown, and you could not deny him the MVP. Well, the narrative, which I believe is false, but the narrative was the reason they threw that pass in the Super Bowl was because they did not want Marshawn Lynch to be the MVP. They wanted the golden child and Russell Wilson to throw the game-winning touchdown pass, write the storybook, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Russ is your Super Bowl MVP because the defense won it the year before, and anointing Russ and putting him right up on his way to being an absolute, not only Seattle sports, but NFL legend. And Malcolm Butler said, no, you're not going to do that. And if you remember after that,
that was the peak of his career.
Yeah, he's speaking of discipline issues. But that was the whole argument, right? Was, well, why wouldn't they give it to Marshawn? Marshawn Lynch left the sideline. He did not stick around because that wasn't the end of the game. It was close. There, 2 knees had to be taken. Seattle started fighting, and it was a whole thing. Most Seahawks fans don't remember it because they got blind with rage after that. But Marshawn Lynch left the sideline. And it was an ugly breakup. Remember, Marshawn then retired, then came back with the Raiders, and it looked to be like, all right, it was a decent run, but Marshawn Lynch and the Seattle Seahawks, there's no way they can coexist again. Marshawn was openly calling out Pete Carroll, going like, yeah, he wanted Russell Wilson to be the MVP. That's why I didn't. Guess what happened? Injury bug hits. Marshawn Lynch is still there. Guess who came back to the good graces of the Seattle Seahawks? Who is now a Seattle sports ambassador because he was at the Kraken game. He's doing NBC. Pete Carroll never burned that bridge. Could have. A lot of coaches would have. So while it seemed as though the divorce between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks a couple of years ago might end that particular relationship forever, if there is a coach that I would say never, it's Pete Carroll. If they miss the playoffs, they know Russell Wilson's agent. They know everybody at Team 3. They would allow for Jake Heaps to be his personal quarterback coaching. All that stuff that Russell wanted to do in Denver, guess what? He was doing it in Seattle. The whole personal quarterback thing. Jake Heaps was there in Seattle the whole time. And then Sean Payton came in and said, yeah, he's not going to do that. Shocking that it didn't work out so well between those two. Remember Russell Wilson was coming in last year and using Seattle audibles? Remember that whole thing? He's not even using Nathaniel Hackett's audibles. He's using the. Well, guess what? You know where they still use Seattle audibles? In Seattle. You might be able to get him at it. Now, here's the thing. Could Russell Wilson and his ego, which is ample, humble himself to come back to the Seahawks at a discounted rate?
Only if he.
I don't think he would.
Only if he would yell run and pass for the opposing offense. Run, Pat. No, I'm just kidding. But all that.
Can I tell you something real quick? And I want to let you finish your point. And I apologize for cutting you off, but you brought up something there that triggered me. I know that I played 3A at the time, high school football in the state of Oregon.
They'd be 5A now. I'm just saying.
I think we're 4. I don't know.
The one below, like it would be 5A.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like pretty much the top. It's all good.
We were, yeah.
Just run with it, Justin.
Strive for accuracy. But can I tell you that if mediocre level high school football, you get a guy saying, hey, yell run or pass. You're like, we shut up, dude. And he's doing it in the NFL. He's doing it in the NFL. Like, hey, help the defense out, run or pass. And everybody, like the Broncos guys, are looking around going like, what? What are we doing?
That's where you got to cue up the Chip Kelly. Hey, would you guys shut up? I mean, like,
yeah, when he yelled at the kid. But anyways, your point.
Yeah, just with Russ, like it's not as crazy as you as some might think. He will obviously be cut, and I don't know exactly how the whole like he has to clear waivers and then would have to sign. Like, I don't know exactly how all that works, but like,
I thought if he was cut at a certain day, he's unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, after he clears the waivers, because otherwise that team would have to pay him.
Oh, they have to pay him his current contract.
Yeah, which
nobody's paying that.
No.
Nobody is paying.
But no, I think it's one of those things where you're right. The bridges weren't burned, and it could work. But if you're a Seahawk fan, and Justin, you're married to a pretty big Seahawk fan.
I am.
Do you think any of the Seahawk fans, like, for lack of better terms, want that smoke again? Or, like, thanks for the great memories, Fall Out Boy, awesome song.
Has enough time passed to where, because
and it's like, we saw you stink. I mean, maybe he could get the best out of it in Seattle, but like, what they've seen since he left is like not the rust they had in Seattle.
Maybe not the same as, say, Jonathan Smith. That one, but
had
like,
to go there this morning.
Sorry about it. Both Oregon and Oregon State have dealt with this problem, though. But, like, when Mike Riley left for Nebraska, that was probably a kick in the junk, right? And to think, like, oh, yeah, but it wasn't all roses. There were some things about Riley that probably drove Oregon. But after every single year that kind of passes, you forget about the bad ones and you remember all the good ones. That's just kind of how that whole time heals all the wounds. And it's like, yeah, after all these years, Mike Riley comes back. He's in the Hall of Fame. It's like, didn't he leave for Nebraska? I don't know, but he,
Where's the Cristobal gauge with the Oregon fan base right now? Because Cristobal
they're still laughing at his lack of success at Miami.
Yeah, so if Jonathan Smith...
That's 2 years.
Yeah, if Jonathan Smith didn't win at Michigan State this first year, and he probably won't. Like, Michigan State was objectively terrible this year.
They were not good.
So...
But you can transfer portal that in.
You can, but yeah, like if...
But you see what I'm saying? Like, enough time passed where I'm sure Oregon State fans are like, well, we love Riley. I don't know if the 2 years is there enough with the rust thing, but if he can get you to the playoffs, he can get you to a division that's going to have Brock Purdy, by the way, for the foreseeable future, and Kyle Shanahan. Like, good luck keeping up with that with Geno Smith. Anyways, we got some more NFL talk coming up in a bit. We're going to talk some NBA. Couple of big-time players showing up last night in the NBA. So we're going to dive into that coming up in a bit. But before we get to all of that, I do want to tell you about my good friends at DeBella. They're the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers, and it's supposed to be real cold coming up in about a week or so, right? When that cold winter weather hits, you start cranking up the heat, and those energy bills, they start going sky high. Well, maybe take care of your roofing, your windows, your siding. You don't have to crank up the heat as much, and your energy bills can come down as much as 30%. You know who can help with that? DeBella. That's right. Whether your roof is leaking or just aging, or you need to renovate your windows and your siding, all of that can save you big bucks on your energy bills, especially during the winter. But you might be saying, Justin, we can't afford this at this time. Well, here's what DeBella's got for you. 0 down, no payments till 2025. Boom. How about that? No payments until 2025 on approved credit with 0 down. They've got 15,000 5-star reviews on Google for their excellent work. Visit DeBella, DABELLA.US for a free, no obligation appointment, and they can make updating your home so easy. DeBella, they're the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. through the season, right? Just 50 games left. We're over a third of the way through the season.
Which is nuts.
This football calendar, like, now that the NFL added this Week 18, and we talked about it, I think, a little bit this morning, and like, what's up with college basketball, and like, and I firmly believe one of the things that did in the college basketball regular season, I talked about with Tyson on Wednesday. Brendan, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, you probably are. Thanksgiving, college football was done.
I do remember.
And everyone, and then like the SEC in the 90s created their championship game, and it was usually just, but like the Big Ten and the Pac-10, Thanksgiving weekend, we're done. And there would be some bowl games, right? A smattering of bowl games, especially around Christmas or so. But it was like you were done, and then January 1, we'd have the bowl games. And that was the time where we would all watch college basketball. Feast week was kind of created, right? And you get these holiday tournaments, the Battle for Atlantis and all that. Like, because there was no college. Now it's like the week before Thanksgiving, Oregon State played Washington. Oregon went down to the desert. Thanksgiving, Civil War, Pac-12 championship game, Army-Navy, and then all of a sudden now we're like, and then transfer portal and everything. Like, college football used to just give up on December. It's like, yeah, here you go, basketball. Have the month of December. And college football's like, yeah, no, it's transfer portal time. It's coaching carousel. Also, we've added 2 extra weeks essentially with the extended 12-game season and the championship games in every conference. Then Army-Navy. That's like, whoa. So who's got time for basketball? Anyways. But in the NBA, kind of the same thing. The NFL added that 18th week and was like, all right, you got to start paying attention to the NBA now. So for a long, long time, actually, you know what? Shame on me. Let's open up the music. It's more fun with the music. It's time for Round Ball Rock. Give me some Tash. Boom, there it is. All right. So for a long, long time, it was pretty cut and dry that while there were other candidates for MVP, LeBron James was the best player on the planet. For a long time. Still very good, by the way. Rumors swirling around, though. LeBron may not be happy with another head coach. Shocker.
Darvin Dunn?
Sounds like it. Shams is reporting, now I don't know how much we feel about Shams. Are we still mad at Shams? Still mad at him? I don't know.
GP2 is just a walking injury, so it's hard.
He's got hurt again, didn't he?
Yeah, so it's really hard.
I mean, should their NBA investigate what's going on in gold? Anyways, we don't have time for that. We had to talk about this. Well, there may be other MVP candidates. There was a run where LeBron, he was the best player, right? Obviously, Jordan had a run where it's like, I don't care who the MVP is. He's the best player. Kobe had a run where it's like, I don't care who the MVP is. He's the best. Now we sit here in this fantastic time in the NBA. And Brendan and I had this discussion earlier, and might as well run it back for about, I don't know, a couple minutes here. Who's the best player in the league right now? Who's the best? Giannis put up 44 last night, took down Wemby. Now that's against the Spurs. The Spurs stink, but still, Giannis, when he turns it on, we talked about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe the MVP candidate, and what he's doing with the Spurs, or sorry, the Thunder. Jokic, still Jokic. He had a game winner last night. He's still a walking triple-double machine. Anthony Edwards is in the mix. LeBron's still playing, by the way. What a fantastic time. Who's the best player in the league? I think it's Giannis. I do. I think it's Giannis. Kevin Durant, by the way, is still like, I'm not done yet, boys. Brendan, who's your not MVP? Right now, you had to do a definitive ranking best basketball players on the planet. Who's your number one overall pick?
I'm going Luka.
Oh, Luka?
Yeah, I'm going Luka.
He's so...
Yeah, I mean, we'll see it again tonight, folks, because the Blazers didn't magically find some way to...
Why are they doing the back-to-back so much? If they... I feel like they've been doing it a lot this year. Am I wrong on that one?
No.
Because they went back-to-back against the Spurs.
It's felt that way. Maybe, Justin, I mean, maybe it's better for travel, right? To get your 2 games in Dallas. You're not going to play more than that in Dallas, so you get them out of the way kind of a thing. I think Luka's who I'd go with, but you could convince me on Giannis. You could convince me on Embiid on the right day. You could convince me on Jokic. That's probably...
It is nuts, like any given day.
I do love Jason Tatum, so I'd throw him
Yeah,
out.
Jason Tatum's still like, hey.
I love that guy.
Dudes, don't forget about me.
People seem to sleep on him, and I don't know how, but 25 years old.
Also, by the way, I looked at the Blazers schedule. It's just because it's happened twice. They played the Spurs back-to-back, and they played the Mavericks back-to-back. That's the only back-to-backs they've had. So, a little recency bias by your host here. Is it good or bad for the league that there isn't a clear-cut best player in the league?
I think it's great for the league.
He's great for the league?
I do.
Because there was a long time when Jordan left, it wasn't good for the league. They're like...
The talent wasn't great, I think.
Too many high school kids.
Yeah, and that was like when the Nets made the finals.
And then they started letting teams started winning 87-74, and it was like, we don't like this at all.
Justin, real quick, do you think Portland's fortunes will change on this road trip, or do you think it's going to get from bad to worse?
I don't know. We'll see. That's a terrible answer. I think it's going to get worse. But I might look stupid tonight. I might look foolish. All right. We got hour number 2 coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trailblazers back in action tonight. They'll be taking on the Dallas Mavericks once again in Dallas. Tip-off at 5:30. Pre-game coverage begins at 3 o'clock right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Pac-12 basketball last night. The Oregon Ducks take down Washington 76-74 at the, well, it wasn't quite at the buzzer, but pretty close at the buzzer. Jackson Shelstad dropped in 17 points for the Ducks. Meanwhile, on the Palouse, the Cougs take down the Beavs 65-58. Oregon 3-1 in Pac-12 play. Beavs drop to 1-2. Coming up in hour number 3, Kurt Heelan, NBA on NBC, is going to be joining us to talk about kind of the new pathway for the Blazers, and we'll get his take on who is the best basketball player in the world right now. Wembanyama looks like a problem. But hour number 2 of RCM starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, make or miss in 20 minutes. It is Friday. Got some hot takes we want to throw out. Hot Take Friday, I think, is going to survive for a while. It's on probation.
Oh, I got a steaming one.
Okay.
I'm excited. On the drive-in, it came to me this morning.
Okay. I'm very excited about this. Teased it 40 minutes in advance, so I'm telling you, must be
I'm fired
must
up.
be cooking. All right, so we've eliminated some parts of the show that I feel like have gotten a little bit stale. Some of the things are staples, like Make or Miss ain't going anywhere. Mailbag's not going anywhere. Big Three, gone. It was a good run, but I didn't invent it. I think Andy Bunker, my good friend Andy Bunker, who was one of the original hosts of this particular
program.
maintained
through several hosts.
Yeah. So, with love and respect, Andy Bunker was the official. Andy Bunker married me and my wife. He is a dear, dear friend. I love that guy. I love that guy. Crushing it in Atlanta right now. And I believe he created the Big Three. But it's just not working anymore. So, Big Three is, we've found a nice farm for it to live out in the country. And it can run all day long. Did your parents ever try to do that with like a pet or something? Like, it was.
Unfortunately, I've had the distinction and
remember that? Oh, he's just gonna go out to a farm and.
Yeah, they never sold it to us that way.
Yeah, it's like here's circle of life, kids.
Pretty much, like I've had it both ways. I've had, I'm trying to think now. I've had 3 dogs in my life, and my dad's maybe a little bit more emotional, and my mom's maybe more of like, you're going to have like 6 or 7 dogs in your lifetime. Like, that's just how it works.
Luckily,
it's, I've kind of known for a while, like, losing animals is tough. But
moving on, don't want to talk about this right now.
No, let's keep going.
It's my fault. You know what? That one's on me.
It's all right, Justin. I'm still doing good here on a Friday.
But the big three is out to pasture. It's done. But something I want to talk about today. Saw this on the interwebs. And, Brendan, you bring an interesting perspective because you don't have an emotional investment in this, but I do believe you have some intimate knowledge of this particular subject. Here's what I want to talk about. A lot of Washington fans feeling themselves right now, and I understand it. I get it. And Michael Penix he's unbelievable. Like I said, all week long, I want to hate him so much. Can't hate him. He's so good. His story is so good. It is a story of in an era of college football where if I'm not playing, I'm bouncing. You see the story about this Malachi Nelson kid? And I hope he grows up, does some. Malachi Nelson in high school didn't play in a high school playoff game for fear of getting injured and losing his NIL deal. Right? That's where we're at. And I understand it. Right? That's life-changing money. It's money that I was never offered. But he didn't play in a high school playoff game. Then went to USC, played behind Caleb Williams, likely in line to be the starter going into the Big Ten, and he left. Now he's taking trips to Boise, and it's like in an era where, like, if I don't get everything I want right now, and Anytime the road gets tough, I quit and I go to another team, right? And that's an oversimplification of it, but the fact that you got a Michael Penix story where he could have quit, right? It's like, look, I play football. I'm good at football. I keep tearing my ACLs, and I keep busting up this shoulder, and I keep getting hurt over and over and over again. Maybe football is just not for me. Maybe I got to find something else to do. And the perseverance, so even though he plays for Washington, even though I am a fierce rival of Washington, you can't not like Michael Penix. You can't. Then Washington fans have to go and take it a step too far. Now, Michael Penix had an unbelievable game against the Texas Longhorns, and he had an unbelievable season. Not a perfect season, but an unbelievable season. But then Husky fans just got to take it a little bit too far. And so somebody on the internet said, in the Pac-12 era, not the history of the conference, but in now what is the final days of the Pac-12, which came into existence in 2011, till now, this 2023 season, said Michael Penix might be the best player in the history of the Pac-12 in the era from 20, and I'm like, do you all forget about old number 8 down in Eugene? The guy that holds that stiff arm trophy and had more touchdowns than anybody. They almost stopped counting the amount of touchdowns. Now, I am massively biased that I believe in the Pac-12 era from 2011 to 2023, there was never a better player than Marcus Mariota. I understand why Michael Penix would be in the discussion, but I think in the discussion is a little bit different. Discussion should end with regard to what Marcus did. Now, maybe I have got too much emotion involved, so I will turn it over to our resident Beaver believer, who is here in the Northwest, who has a unique knowledge of football of that era. Am I nuts? There's no way Michael Penix was a better college football player than Marcus Mariota. Am I nuts here?
It depends on what you're looking for.
Well, that's best player Pac-12 era. And whatever that means to you.
It's debatable because Marcus had nowhere. I mean, Marcus, he had the rushing yards, but had nowhere close to the passing yards that Michael Penix has put up the last 2 years.
But look at his touchdowns, though.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so his last year, he threw for 4,400. That's pretty impressive.
Whoa, yeah.
But Penix had back-to-back years of 4,600 or more.
I get it. That's 200 yards.
And he was, Penix was the first. They threw out an awesome stat, and shout out to the producer on ESPN during the Sugar Bowl. Justin, did you know the last quarterback to throw for more than 4,600 yards in back-to-back seasons in collegiate football? His name is Patrick Mahomes. So now it's Patrick Mahomes and Michael Penix.
And Michael Penix did it while going 13-0. And Patrick Mahomes did not.
While going 6-7, something like that. I mean, I love Patrick Mahomes, Justin, but there's a reason he wasn't drafted.
Yeah, went to a couple Outback Bowl or something.
Yeah, and by the way, you see old brother got off. Got off. Sorry, I had to mention it real quick.
Is that because Taylor Swift? Make a call?
There's some help,
Did Taylor make a call there? Anyways.
He probably could. But no, to your point, I think there's a case. I think you said best player in the Pac-12?
Pac-12 era, 2011 to this last year, and all things in between. Caleb Williams won the Heisman. Can't deny it.
Yeah.
But I would say asterisk for Caleb Williams was what his year was this year matters. And he won the Heisman Trophy without having to play Oregon or Washington.
Right.
You know what I mean? That I think kind of matters.
Yeah, I mean, there's some dudes you forget about, those are, let me put it this way, that is the top tier.
Because, Andrew Luck was Pac-10 era. I think maybe he played one year.
I think 1 year.
Yeah.
So he comes to mind.
So Andrew Luck might sneak into the conversation.
Again, here's another crazy one, and maybe it's ifs and ands and pots and pans and all that. But Justin, we forget. Do you know who the last USC quarterback was to take them to a Rose Bowl?
Sam Darnold?
Oh, Sam Darnold.
Well, Sammy Darnold was a dog in college.
In 2017, there's a reason that Sam Darnold was the third pick in the draft. I mean, he threw for, 4,300 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, and USC went to the Rose Bowl and won that year, right? Caleb Williams, he'd take his team to a Rose Bowl the last 2 years? Don't think so.
Well, he went to the Cotton Bowl.
And then lost to a team called the Green Wave.
Don't sleep on Tulane.
I'm just saying, did Oregon lose to the Flames?
I don't think Caleb Williams is in now. Put Caleb Williams Oklahoma stats, but we don't do that, right? Just like Michael Penix, like he only gets his Washington stats. But I'm just saying, to me it comes. It's in the discussion, but like I said,
would you have taken?
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I believe that because of what we have seen from Marcus in the NFL, we forget.
Sure.
I think we forget how good he was.
Oh, he was.
And if we're looking at this, if Michael Penix goes to the NFL and is a backup, and I don't think he will. I think he's going to be very good at the next level. He's 6'3" with a rocket arm and seems to make good decisions and seems to be incredibly accurate. But if he doesn't, right, if he doesn't make it in the NFL, are we going to look back and think a little bit differently? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Not to mention the fact that you mentioned yesterday, like how many, start naming now, how many left-handed quarterbacks have had terrific NFL careers? And I don't mean to be handist. Handist. I made that one up on the fly.
We're all aware you made that one up.
Handist. But, that's a part of it. I mentioned the injury history. I think you could debate that between Duck and Husky fans until the cows came home at the local sports bars between those guys.
Now, I will say, Michael Penix wins on Monday. That's a different feather and a different cap, if you know what I'm saying.
Because that would push him.
If Michael Penix goes and puts up 328 or whatever and 4 touchdowns against Michigan and wins the national title, first off, oh boy, that's going to be awful if he does. But we may have a different discussion on Tuesday. We might have a different discussion on Tuesday, but until that, if that doesn't happen, I'm still riding with Marcus.
College football was different, but if Michael Penix were to win, that pushes him into the category of USC in the early 2000s. And those guys, I'm not going to sit there and say are like the best, because you look back at, like, for instance, Matt Leinart was elite, but he never threw for more than 3,800 yards in a season, right?
Yeah, because, again, college football was different back then. And also, I will say this, and I have recency bias. I have my era bias. I think, a tremendous respect for the history of this conference and the football players that played in it. For my money, greatest Pac-12, 10, 8, Pacific Coast player ever, Reggie Bush.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And again, I didn't watch John Elway play at Stanford. All right, I was 3. Okay, so I didn't see it. I didn't see John Elway play at Stanford. He may be the guy, right? And there's a handful of other players, I'm sure. There was a running back that was really good at USC that we don't bring up anymore.
Oh, the guy who played for the Bills?
The guy that played for the...
Yeah, that guy. Played for the Bills.
He ended his career with the 49ers, did some TV, was in some movies, and I think that was about it.
As I heard...
I
heard, Justin, in the early 90s, Hertz commercials were popping.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's...
He did some work for NBC.
That's the, I just...
He was in those Naked Gun movies, and then that's it. That's all we ever heard of him.
Nothing else, right? But yeah, I mean...
It's a serious thing. 2 people lost their lives. But if that ever happens, like...
Goodness gracious.
I think we're having this discussion right now. I think that's the guy who's
guy's
number
in
one.
there too. I mean...
I think he might be.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
If it ended at Naked Gun movies.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
He was, I've said this forever.
But I
think you can compartmentalize and say, like, great college players, great NFL players, and you can be a great college player, and if you're not a great NFL player, that does not diminish your college career.
No, not one bit.
But if you're able to be great at both, that puts you into a different, like, for me, like, that's why when people ask me, like, who's the greatest beer of all time? And for me, it's Steven Jackson. Because
it's Steven Jackson.
No one is ever going to beat his records with the Rams because we don't give running backs 10 years anymore.
Yeah. And also St. Louis Rams definitely nobody's getting that record.
And as Justin said, like, Oregon State doesn't get guys like that. So, like, it's like, who are just like, oh, like, that dude's a man, you are all boys.
What must that have been like? Because Kenny Simonton is coming off of 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And all of a sudden, at whenever Steven Jackson walked on campus, and they probably was like, oh, boy, this is a problem.
I mean, Kenny Simonton, Justin, stood at 5'7".
3 consecutive.
5'7", 201. So let's just see what Steven Jackson was.
He didn't get that 1,000 yards in that 4th year. Still mad about it. He's still mad about it.
Yeah,
Told me about it. I got a chance
I
to
don't
interview
blame
him.
him. It was,
Still mad about it.
I mean, we could have ran a few more run plays. Come on, guys.
Yeah, could
But
but
we had
Steven Jackson was there.
Yeah, hand the ball off, Jonathan. Just saying. But no, Justin. Then you bring in Steven Jackson, 6'2", 240 pounds of man.
Dude,
it's like that dude.
I think I told you I sat next to him at an Oregon State basketball game because obviously he's not. It was his sophomore year.
He could fit in a regular chair.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to go to the student section, right? He was sitting in the regular the regular seats, and I said, his forearm was so big, his forearm looked like a leg. I'm just like
mammoth of a man.
That's one of those things, right? You can see there are dudes with big biceps. You want to know, forearms. If you have big, you go back like those Mark McGuire steroid years.
Yeah.
It's like, look at his forearms.
But yeah, to finish that point,
Marcus is the best guy.
I mean, there's a case if he wins on Monday. I think you do have to really look at.
You do, don't you?
You do, because he's gonna be a national champion, and we haven't had one.
Especially if he throws for like 3+ against Michigan.
And we haven't had one in 20 years, Justin.
Can we get Connor Stallions back? Can we get Connor Stallions start spying? Does Connor Stallions been spying in Seattle this whole time?
I mean, no, but
come on.
This
Can we get the signals back?
That's the other thing we're not talking about, Justin. I know it's your rival and everything, but we are on the precipice of only something that's happened twice. This being the second time since 2004, and that's a Pac-12 team to walk away with the national championship. Obviously, Oregon had their shot. Came up short. Zeke was pretty good. And to my knowledge, no other Pac-12 team has been in it since Vince
Huskies in 2016, but they got...
No. I mean, since Vince Young ran over USC, like the game...
Yes, in the game.
Determining you could win the trophy. I think it's just, So
USC won it. USC lost it. Oregon lost it in 2010 to Cam Newton, and then Oregon lost it
Oregon twice. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I know. You won't forget about that. That happened.
2010 was a lot more competitive.
It was. All right. We've got Make or Miss coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, hour from now, Kurt Heelan's going to be on the big show. Oh, I love Kurt Heelan. Covers the NBA for NBC Sports. Also, like me, a big fan of food competition challenge shows. So we'll talk to Kurt Heelan coming up in hour number 3.
Been a minute since we caught up with Kurt.
I know. This is what football... And look, I'm not going to apologize for the amount of times we talk about football on this show because it's... Look, I'm sorry. In the sports hierarchy, football's number one, and it's not particularly close, both NFL and college. And we're right in the heart of it right now. And we're going to dive into the NBA, and we're going to get going to the NBA, but it's second place. And I understand if you're a basketball fan going like, oh, well, you just shut up about football. But we're a sports show. We're not a basketball show. We will talk about basketball, but I'm not going to apologize for the amount of times we talk about football on this particular program. But we are going to talk to Kurt Heelan. Big fan of his. So we're going to talk to Kurt coming up in hour number 3. We got some hot takes coming up in just a bit as well. But right now, let's dive into Make or Miss. Here we go.
It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and a big miss.
It's Make or Miss here on RCM.
All right, Justin firing up Make or Miss here on a Friday. Caleb Williams is not a lock to go number 1.
Oh, that's a very good question. Who's it going to be then? I'm going to say it's a miss. I think he's still a lock to go number 1. Because, here's why. So the Bears have the number 1 pick by way of Carolina. They're going to trade that pick, right? That pick's going to be traded.
Maybe.
Because I think at the end of the day, we see this in drafts a lot. Now, maybe it's happened a little bit faster, but usually we see this in drafts a lot, where somebody emerges as the favorite. Consensus number 1, right? Bryce Young last year. I remember it was Bryce Young last year. He's the favorite. He's going number 1. And because we all need stuff to talk about, and because teams like to throw out little smoke signals and throw out little distractions, then it was like, well, C.J. Stroud going to go number 1. Probably should have. And then remember Anthony Richardson. Lot of buzz on Anthony Richardson. Will Levis hearing some things about his, and then ultimately it comes all the way back around to you take the consensus number 1. And here's why. So let's just say that the Commanders trade up to that number 1 pick. Who else would be in the mix to trade up? I don't think the Patriots are going to trade up.
This wouldn't take very much to get there for how bad they already are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they were 18th, but they're already projected to have, what, 3rd pick?
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be too hard, but like I told you before, that's a non-starter as long as Bill Belichick is there because Caleb Williams and Bill Belichick's personalities do not mesh.
So you got the Raiders could potentially trade up.
That kid looks like Las Vegas. I mean,
for that number 1 pick. And who in the NFC?
I could see the Patriots.
And then the Commanders, right? That's it.
I could see the Patriots taking Drake May. That seems like a player.
But I don't see the Patriots trading up. So think about teams that are not going to make the playoffs. Colts, Anthony Richardson. Texans, C.J. Stroud. Well, these teams might make the playoffs. Never mind. Broncos, they have nothing to trade. They traded it all to Seattle. So the Broncos, I do not believe have anything to trade. Bengals, no. Raiders, maybe. Jets, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Titans, Will Levis. Chargers, Herbie. Patriots, I guess the Patriots, here's the thing. Brendan, if the Patriots fire Bill Belichick, or Bill Belichick decides enough New England winters, get me to sunnier place, and they mutually part ways.
I do know a lot about
because he's the GM and the coach. You know what I mean? New GM and Robert Kraft could be like, hey, we need to make a splash, trade up.
Oh, did you just drop a cold reference to my favorite show?
People they pay to get wet or whatever, which is kind of a weird line.
It is a little bit. It's a little bit of a weird analogy.
Felt uncomfortable even saying it out loud.
That's a bit of a weird analogy, but hey, shout out, Notice how in that movie, Justin, Dennis Leary did not have draft control.
Get me one of these. Anyways, I like Dennis Leary. I find him very funny.
I do too.
He's so bad in that movie.
I see. I told you.
He is so terrible in the
Get you
draft
one of
day
these.
movie.
Like you said.
Nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like that. It's like, hey, did
I
anybody...
haven't spent time in NFL facilities,
Brendan,
so I couldn't say.
yes, you have, because Hard Knocks exists in our world. Has anybody who wrote Draft Day watched an episode of Hard Knocks? You just watch them. They're on the app, every single one of them. Go watch an episode of Hard Knocks.
True.
That's
true.
how they talk.
Now, I would like to know if anybody skipped Caleb Williams' birthday. Like that would be.
Well, silly stuff like that's going to come up. The whole that he paints his fingernails.
Oh, yeah.
And the NIL stuff. Does he care about football? Or does he care about money? Like,
they're going to say, remember when he said he wanted to be drafted with an ownership of an NFL team?
all that stuff's going to come up. That's kind of the equivalent of like, does anybody go to his birthday party? Which,
Just saying.
Okay, so the Bears get the number 1 pick. The Bears got 7 wins this year. They might get 8 if they beat the Packers. Again, that's a 3-point game. So you're the Bears. You got to give Fields one more year, right? You give him one more year. They're improving. You give him one more year, and you get Marvin Harrison Jr. Do you know what I mean?
If I'm the Bears, because they pick 1 and 10 right now.
Yes.
If I'm the Bears, I say, can I trade 1 and move back to like 3 or 4? Then you can take...
And maybe potentially get Marvin Harrison Jr.
And then I double down. I get 2 receivers for Fields. I get like Rome Odunes too. I just double down on receivers and get him like Marvin Harrison and Odunes. Could you imagine Justin Fields with those 2 targets? I would give him a shot.
Yeah.
Now...
No, they'd be rookies and all that stuff. But
Do we think Arizona will move off of Kyler Murray?
No. Too much money. I think it's too much. He just got an extension.
Well, so did Russell Wilson.
Good point. Fair point. But I don't think so. Remember, he's also coming off injury and actually he's played okay. Right? The last couple of weeks, they're 2-2.
But no one
The
else.
last 4 weeks, they got to win against the Steelers. That was bad.
So no one else.
They got to win against the Eagles.
The nutty thing is, no one else other than Marvin Harrison Jr. could. Like it's weird. Like I remember a couple years ago, it was like Trayvon Walker. They're like, no matter what, this dude's gonna be the number 1 pick. Or I remember the Jalen Carter before he had his driving issue and he fell to like 10th. But for a while, it's like,
how's he doing, by the way? Just fine, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He's doing just fine.
Hey,
like,
don't probably shouldn't have drove though. Not the bestest thing.
Like someone sadly lost their life in that situation, but
yeah. But he's still really talented.
Still very, very talented. And he was
like,
not the one driving. He was just driving very fast.
But you know what I mean, though? Like how in other years there have been years where it's like, okay, a defender is going to go first if a team doesn't need a quarterback. This year, Justin, the team who picks first, you're not taking, I'm looking at a mock draft. You're not taking Brock Bowers, who's a top 10 pick. You're not taking, offensive linemen from Notre Dame and Penn State who are top 10 picks. You're not taking probably Penix or Odunes. So it's like, I think I might go against my own make or miss. I don't know if there's anybody with as high of a ceiling as Caleb Williams that you would take first.
And here's
overall.
why. Whoever gets that number 1 pick, and maybe it's if the Bears don't trade it and they go Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1, right? That might happen.
Possible.
But here's why Caleb Williams is going to be locked to be number 1. Because for the last year, we've heard, oh, this guy's the best, he's number 1, he's number 1. But you don't pick him, and he ends up being like C.J. Stroud, right?
Fired. At the pool.
Fired. But if you pick him, and he's like, maybe doesn't pop, you can still survive that as a GM because, like, what are we going to do, right?
Although I would say
like
this.
You miss on him, and you had the number 1 pick. And that's why these guys, you hear things like, oh, I'm hearing rumblings. They're maybe not all that secure. And no, they come back to that number 1 pick. That's consensus because that stuff matters.
Right.
You get the number 1 pick and you pass over a guy who everybody said should go number 1, and he ends up going number 3. And 2 years he's in the Pro Bowl. It's like, good luck. Just like like the Panthers right now are kicking themselves because C.J. Stroud was the guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I miss on a lot of quarterbacks. I was on the money on that one.
You were, and...
I was on the money on that one. And, like, And if Anthony Richardson comes back from injury, is like the Panthers might be kicking themselves in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it because Anthony Richardson he played, I think, one game or two before he got hurt. But,
But he was named the starter.
He was. And granted, Gardner Minshew was his backup. But, hey, Gardner Minshew leading his team into contention.
Is Gardner Minshew the new Fitzpatrick? Is he the new Fitzmagic?
Dude, he might be.
Just like, I go places, I'm a backup, guy gets hurt, I get you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then I go and I find somewhere else to play. And it's like, in baseball, they call them 4A players.
Sure.
You're too good for minor leagues, but you're not quite Major League Baseball caliber. And they always go back and forth and back and forth. Like, Gardner Minshew's like, he's too good to be a backup.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's a starter on any team. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So he's just going to go back and forth and probably make a very good living and be just fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers, like you said, they will be kicking themselves for Bryce Young because...
Well, maybe, who knows? Like, let's give Bryce Young a little bit of time, right? It's an interesting situation there. Their owner's throwing drinks in people's faces.
Yeah, as it turns out, maybe a guy who, ran a hedge fund and knew nothing about sports is not the greatest sports owner.
By the way, did you see the math on his $300,000
yes,
fine?
It'd be like the equivalent of you and I getting fined $3.
I heard $1.88, but same difference.
Sure, yeah,
same
fair,
difference.
Yeah, I was like,
average, average salary of American person, $1.88.
Yeah, I mean, again,
Could you imagine being able to throw a drink in somebody's face and say, $2? Yeah, keep the 12 cents.
Yeah, I mean, just for perspective, y'all. I mean, like David Tepper, again, just consider, it's worth $22 billion, just. That makes him one of the more rich owners in the entire...
I think he's number 2 in the NFL.
There you go.
Behind the
Waltons.
the Broncos.
The Waltons, yep. Again, just...
Well, and sadly, because Paul Allen's not with us anymore, Paul Allen would put a run
I
on
think
that
he
one.
would have, but as it turns out, Justin, not everybody, and I learned this too. Not every, and this is why we'll close on this. Or
Yep.
So we got one more. We
Yeah,
got
we
one more
got
to get to. But that's why I think we said those who enjoy shopping owe good old Sam Walton the thanks, Justin, because not everybody needs a computer. Everybody needs to go to the grocery store.
Well, and also, you need an extension cord, you need a broom, you need, hey, can I just get it all in one place? Got it.
Walmart. Yep.
I like to talk to you about, times in this world before the internet, right? Because you have had the internet pretty much your entire life.
Yeah.
Right? From the moment you have cognitive memory, you have had the internet in your life. And so...
A good barometer for me is
So it's always fun to, go back and tell you about what life was like before the internet. I grew up in the era of department stores. We went to Fred Meyer for everything.
Yeah.
Right. Fred Meyer in Roseburg, a.k.a. Freddy's, shouted out. It was the spot, right? You just hey, we need all this stuff. We're going to Freddy's. We're going to Freddy's. We need sugar. We need some milk. We need some socks. Dustpan. We're Freddy's. Going to Freddy's. It's got everything. Can you imagine that world before where you had to go to 5 different stores? It's you had to go to the broom store, and then you had to go to, and even there's the produce stand, and then there's man, I don't know how people lived back then. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, or you tell people again.
And then now it's you got off your couch get stuff? And I was yeah. You did.
The other day, it's funny you mentioned this, Justin.
Yeah.
Quick story time. My brother, who's 18, I was having this we were having just a conversation about how things used to be and how you never quite know about companies, for instance, right? And it's he looked at me like I was, crazier than crazy when I said, Brogan, at one point, Sears was Amazon.
Dude, Sears was
They had a catalog
spot.
They sent it to your house. You ordered off Sears and it got delivered to you. That is Sears.
Dude, Sears was so
and Sears is a Chapter 11 liquid bankruptcy company. So it just makes you wonder because we had the conversation what companies
every town in America had a Sears.
Right. So in 20 years, Justin, what company that we hang our hat on now will not be there. It's you can assume at least one because it just that vicious cycle. And he looked at me wait, Sears? I'm like, oh yeah, like you
Dude,
bought
Sears was the spot.
washer, dryer, cars, auto repair. I mean,
everything.
Oil change. What did Sears not do, Justin?
Their hardware department, paint. You could buy paint there.
And yeah, it's just nuts. So all that to say, you know.
All that to say, I think Caleb Williams can go number one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a long and short of it. We'll go ahead and close on this one because this is crazy fun to talk about.
All right, who's it going to be, though? Who's it going to be?
So
I don't think it's going to be the Bears. I think the Bears are sticking with Justin Fields. Who's it going to be?
I think the Patriots. I think the Patriots will trade up. I think after they move off from Bill Belichick, they're going to use the draft capital they got from Belichick in addition to their third pick and say, here's our third pick and our capital from Belichick. Get us to one. And a new coach with Caleb Williams.
It's not a bad call. I think it's the Commanders. You ready for like a little hot take preview?
I still
because Hot Take Friday's coming up in a bit. I don't think the Commanders are going to be called the Commanders next year. I think
it'd be nice.
They've got new ownership, right? The guy with Magic Johnson. He wears a burgundy shirt, but he doesn't wear logos. He doesn't wear any of the stuff. I think the Commanders are going to have a new name with a new owner and a new quarterback who's from the D.C. area, and they're going to bring Caleb Williams home. And they're going to build everything around Caleb Williams, and they're going to have a new logo. They're going to have a new team name and everything. And they're vying to build a new stadium.
Can we please
I think it's the Commanders.
Can we please get rid of the colors, too? I want a complete rebrand.
You got to keep the colors.
I want a rebrand of that organization.
You got to keep them.
And again, we don't need to get too deep into this, but like the fact, like my buddy and I had this conversation not too long ago, the fact that they were referred to as the Washington R words for as long as they were, absolutely pitiful. The stench of Dan Snyder still stinks across. A new stadium helps. I think if you could do a whole rebrand. I'm talking New Orleans, Charlotte Hornets when they became the New Orleans Pelicans, and Charlotte Hornets when they became the Bobcats, Justin.
Well, the Bobcats was a bad idea. So that's why they flipped it back.
New colors, rebrand.
That's why the Bobcats don't exist anymore. That was a terrible idea. But yeah,
the Bobcats.
It was a terrible idea. Their owner's name was Robert, and he named the team the Bobcats because his Bob was his name.
Hey, there could be Bobcats in the Carolinas, though. Right? That's not the most unbelievable.
Their owner's name was Robert, and he named the team after himself. All right. There you go. There's Make or Miss. We got Hot Take Friday coming up. But this is not a hot take. This is an important take. That if you want to save money on your energy bills, if you want to update your roof, if your roof is aging, if your roof is leaking, or if you got maybe a drafty house with the cold weather that's coming up, supposed to get really cold next week, well, DeBella, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers, can help you out. They can help you save up to 30%. That's right, 30% on your energy bills. Take care of your roofing, your windows, your siding. They even do bath renovations, and they've got 15,000 five-star reviews. 15,000 customers that were so impressed with the work that DeBella did, they gave them a 5-star review on Google+. This is the perfect time to connect with DeBella because their financing opportunity of zero down and no payments until 2025. That's, of course, on approved credit, but you heard me correct. Zero down and no payments until 2025 on approved credit. Roofing, siding, windows, bath renovations. Look around your house right now or envision your house if you're driving in your car and go, man, always wanted to update that bathroom. Or, man, that roof really needs to be taken care of. Well, visit debella.us for a free, no-obligation appointment, and you could get hooked up with no payments, zero down for a year, up to on approved credit till 2025. That's debella, DABELLA.us for a free, no-obligation appointment. They can make updating your home so easy. DeBella, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. All right, this is the point in the program where we throw out some spicy takes. Hot takes, right? What are hot takes on this particular program? This is how they are defined. Very passionate opinions about things that really don't matter. Right, there's a lot of people that throw out hot takes about things that matter. We don't do that on this particular program. No, we have very, very strong opinions, but they're usually on things that do not matter at all. And so we save some of our spiciest takes for the end of the weekend. Well, what is it? 41 degrees outside right now, according to my computer, and it might be down into the 20s by next week. We need hot takes in this world. We need them. So it is time to open up Hot Take Friday. Here we go.
The week is only...
Let's just dial it back a little bit.
You got me into a bit of a rabbit hole, Justin, when you mentioned that. How much do you think, just throw out a number, we'll keep it quick, because we have a few minutes here to have some fun with this.
Yeah.
How much do you think a brand new house cost the year yours was built? Just roughly. This is fun to play with.
Is it over $1,000?
It is.
Okay. Is it over $5,000?
No.
$3,000.
$3,000.
$3,000.
$3,000 would get you a pretty nice house, and this is 1914, so probably even so real close. But
so if there's a 110-year-old, well, they would have to own the home when they were born. So, boy, yeah, really getting because I know how much I paid for that house.
Brand new car, about $1,500.
That seems high.
It still does, right?
That seems very high. You can get a car for like $400 right now. Isn't that nuts? But no, obviously not a brand new car.
Gas was 9 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
That would have been nice.
Would have been nice. 9 cents
but
a
anyway,
gallon.
yes, all that to say,
So this is 1914, you're saying?
Yeah.
So 1914.
Probably someone paid and built your house for like $3,000.
You get a
That's so
for about $6,000. You could have a brand new house, car, plenty of money to fill it up with gas.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. For about 5 G's. Now, also other things going on in 1914, though. Like, you might end up fighting in World War I. That'd be tough. Be a tough call. It was like, I just got a house. It's like, yeah, we got to go fight Germany. But I'm pretty sure this is the last we're going to see of Germany.
No. But no, yeah, it's, I actually did
That's
not.
still my favorite, one of my favorite, and I'm stealing this. I believe it was Norm Macdonald. It was like, how about Germany? Like, Germany went to war with the world and then did it again. Twice. 2 times. They're like, hey, world, we're taking you on. Beat you. Okay. We learned our lesson. JK, we're going to war again with the world.
Now, for what it's worth, Justin, just to add a perspective onto your number here, folks were only average jobs making about $1,000 a year. So that was about 3 years worth of salary to still buy a house back then. I don't think you can get a house for 3 years' salary nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah, some people can.
Well, that's true.
Some people
that's
can.
true.
All right.
Hot take down your Christmas lights.
Yeah, that's it. Just get them down. I mean, you've had time. All right, you have. Let's bring them down. All right, coming up, hour number 3 of the big show next, 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 8 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers return to action tonight. They'll be once again facing the Dallas Mavericks on the road. Tip-off is set for 5:30. Pregame coverage begins right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Pac-12 basketball last night. The Oregon Ducks take down the Washington Huskies 76-74. 17 points for Jackson Shelstad in the win for the Ducks. Oregon now 3-0 in Pac-12 play. On the Palouse, the Cougs take down the Beavs 65-58. Beavs drop to 1-2 in Pac-12 play. Coming up in 20 minutes, friend of the program from NBC Sports, senior NBA writer Kurt Heelan joins the big show. A lot of NBA topics as we are now shifting focus with one college football game left and kind of where is the direction for these Portland Trail Blazers. But hour number 3 of RCM on a Friday, it starts right now, 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The most transparent show in Portland is Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers, here on 620 Rip City Radio.
As I just told you in the update, Kurt Heelan joins us in 20 minutes. We've also got a RCM mailbag. I do want to say this. I mentioned it on the show yesterday, and I'm so unbelievably lucky. And don't think that it is not lost on me, like how lucky I am to be able to sit here and to talk into this microphone every single day. And if I ever act silly or entitled, feel free to call me out. Some of you already do, but I am unbelievably lucky to have this microphone and to have this show and to have this, some may call it a platform. I don't know if it's really a platform. Somebody said that the other day. They were not happy we had Aaron Fentress on the program. I don't care. I love Aaron Fentress. He makes me laugh. They're like, why would you give that guy a platform? It's like, first off, thanks for thinking our show's a platform. Appreciate it. Secondly, we're just talking about sports. Nobody's hurt, right? Nobody got hurt. Just a couple of opinions. So I don't really think the show is a platform, but I do appreciate anybody that spends any bit of time. But if I could use a little personal note, I mentioned this a little bit on the show yesterday because it was a true statement. I was very much afraid of what I had to do yesterday afternoon. I have a full-blown fear of the dentist. Stems back to when I had a very mean dentist as a kid, and because of that, I have avoided it, and I've avoided it, and I've avoided it, and boy, it caught up with me. Finally, to the point where I couldn't avoid it anymore, and I was worried, I was embarrassed, but finally did the thing. Walked into the dentist office, got a root canal yesterday. Got a lot of work on the old chompers done yesterday, and so because I am lucky enough now, I paid my dentist handsomely yesterday, and he earned every nickel of it. Let me tell you. But I figured I've got an opportunity. I got a platform, kind of. I got a microphone, so I can get a chance to maybe do some good. Let me tell you. Shout out to Dr. Young at Lovejoy Dental. That dude took a grown adult man who was turned into a fear of a pile of putty, driven by fear. And through a couple of hours, he got me through it. Needed it. Also, let me tell you, nitrous helps too. The goof juice, the laughing gas. Brennan, can I tell you the frustration that I had yesterday? Because again, I am thankful for my wife for finally kicking me in the rear end, going like, you're going to the dentist. It's too far. You can't ignore it anymore. I don't care how embarrassed you are. Here's your appointment. Got it. So thankful for my wife for doing that, kicking my butt in the right direction. Like, suck it up. You're a grown adult man. You're not 9 anymore. This isn't the mean dentist down in Winston. All right. This is These are grown professionals here. So, needed that. Also, shout out to Dr. Young at Lovejoy Dental, who he talked me, I believe it's called acting with kid gloves. He had 2 pair, like on Dumb and Dumber. He had 2 gloves the whole time. It's the Rockies. It was like kid gloves. He had 2 pair with me. He was like, "You all right? We doing all right?"
That's looking pretty bad, Harry. You should probably take these extra gloves I have.
That was
extra gloves.
If those were kid gloves, that was my dentist yesterday.
I'm gonna throw this case in that pond.
Took care of me. So But
Did your dentist give you a big briefcase full of money?
No.
Oh,
but
bummer.
I gave him not a briefcase, but a well-earned
fair
tap of the credit card yesterday, but needed my own fault. But let me tell you, I had one bit of frustration yesterday, other than just having a dental procedure done. Brendan, I'm sitting there, and I got the goof juice flowing, right? And you know me. Now, you've not been around me when I've had, like, a couple of cocktails or, like, a couple of glasses of wine. I think I'm hilarious. And so you get and the dentist told me, he's like, "Hey, here's the deal with the nitrous. You shouldn't feel loopy. You should feel like you've had a couple of glasses of red wine." And I'm like, perfect. That is exactly what I need at this moment because my heart is about to jump out of my chest. I'm freaking out so much. So he put the goof juice on me, and I was in a mood. Let me tell you, I was so happy. And they're just all that stuff, usually that drill sound, like talk about I'm not triggered often, but that hit me. But I had the good stuff coming through, and they put it like right on the nose there. But can I tell you what was a little bit frustrating? I had so many jokes that in my head were hilarious. And you know what? Can't tell any of them. You want to know why? Got instruments in the mouth, and I talking like that. So I'm sitting there on the nitrous, and in my head, I got like an hour-long stand-up comedy special that probably should be on Netflix. That's how funny I think I am. I even, because I got a couple of breaks, sent off a couple of text messages. Let me tell you, about an hour later, when everything wore off, I looked back, I was like, boy, that was not as funny as I thought it was. But I want to give a shout out to Dr. Young. All the people at they're not paying me, by the way, at all. This is a free shout out to the people at Lovejoy Dental. Not even free. I paid them yesterday, but they were so good. And I don't know if they realized how much I was freaking out because, as I've mentioned on the show yesterday, I have a healthy respect for the dark and tight spaces and heights and snakes and spiders, bees, hornets. Healthy respect, not a paralyzing fear. I have paralyzing fear of the dentist. Faced my fear yesterday. Couldn't have done it without Ashley. I don't know her last name, but right there the whole time, like a champ. Dr. Young, Lovejoy Dental. Those guys took care of me. Whoo, boy. Then I went on Rip City Drive yesterday, and let's just say I was of sound mind when I was on Rip City Drive, but I may have taken a couple of pain pills. I was of sound mind. I don't.
If it makes you feel any better,
I had a couple of pain pills.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, the last time I went on Rip City Drive with the fellas, like, we had some massive technical glitch at the end of my interview, and it just...
I remember, I was listening.
Yeah, spaceship. Yeah, I, went into the spaceship, they said. Like, I'm just sitting here talking, and gone. So,
yeah.
At least you stayed on.
So I was off of the goof juice, right? That, they put you on oxygen, and they, flush your system out, right? And then, went home, but, you're a little, hey, if you're feeling a little pain, because, I had a lot of work done. Had to be done. My own fault. Did it to myself.
It was just the one tooth, though, right?
There's some other things that had to be done. Let's just say, Don't ignore your teeth. I did it. I was embarrassed. Let me tell you, they catch up with you. They do. And we do I won't lie to this audience, and I feel like it is a gift every single day to be able to talk to all of you. And for that, I will not lie. Yeah. I'm fairly healthy in almost every aspect of my life. I got a couple of vices here and there, but I try not to eat bad. I exercise. Very healthy relationship with my wife. I was not healthy with the teeth. I'll just tell you that.
Did you just never brush?
Oh, no. I brush my teeth I just didn't go to the dentist because they freaked me out. I actually did. I probably overdid the flossing and the brushing because I'm not going to the dentist. And now I'm like, well, I did it, got through it, and I just wanted to take a good couple of minutes and express my gratitude because I don't know if I did that eloquently on the nitrous. But I'm very thankful for a learned doctor for treating a 44-year-old like a child, which is what I needed. All right, so there we go. That being said, Kurt Heelan's going to be joining the show in a bit. We've also got we were talking about the NFL and a lot of scenarios because there's the draft coming up. Clearly, we're going to have a ton of time talking about the draft. A lot of teams resting guys, which I love this time of year as a talk show host because you get to do is it smart to rest guy? Yeah. Pretty sure if you were the Baltimore Ravens, you have Lamar Jackson, you have a chance to win. TJ Watt comes down the line, puts a pop on Lamar Jackson. He takes a wrong turn, twists the knee. You have no chance of winning. If I'm clinched and it's so funny how we create these stories. It's these guys are NFL professionals. And if somebody gets hurt and they miss 3 weeks and then come back, do we ever go is he going to be a little bit rusty? It's no. Comes right back in. I mean, Tyreek Hill, when he was gone for 2 weeks for the Dolphins, came right back in, scored 3 touchdowns or something. But we've talked about this a bunch. Heading into Week 18, we've said, I believe both Brendan and I, we're both on the same page. 49ers are the best team in the NFL. Is there anything to change your mind after these last couple weeks? Or you still think it's the Niners, Ravens, and everybody else?
Yeah, I think it's the Niners, Ravens, and everybody else.
Okay, so of the not top seeds, because it's not always, cut and dry that the number one seeds go. We're heading to Week 18 tomorrow. Top seeds are filled. Of the not top seeds, who's your pick to go to the Super Bowl of a not top seed? I know who mine is, but I'm curious yours. If you had to pick a team in either the AFC or the NFC who is not the Ravens or the 49ers, you go I think this team's going to the Super Bowl. Who are you going with?
How about them Cowboys?
Wow, that is not my pick.
How about them Cowboys? I've said all year, if that defense shows up and Micah Parsons decides to be a disruptor in any given day, and Dak's playing well, and we talked about CeeDee Lamb yesterday, and, I got my boy Brandon Cooks down there too. I know people, it's the uniforms are magic, and nobody has seen the Cowboys do squat since before your boy over here, 27 years, was born.
Yes.
So I understand, but I think, I don't think that they're likely to make the Super Bowl, but you asked a team who's not the top seed who I could see making it. It would not surprise me to see Dallas hold teams to 14 points and at least make the NFC Championship game.
It's the uniform thing for me. And you're right.
Number one or number two defense?
You look at all the numbers, and if those were not the you took all those same players and put them with the Chiefs, you're I think the Chiefs can make the Super Bowl. I think I'm going Dolphins. Now, if Steelers make the playoffs, they face the Dolphins week 1 or Super Wild Card weekend. Watch out. Dolphins got no chance. But I think there's still a way where Kansas City could get the number 2 spot. I think I saw that.
Maybe I should throw in Cleveland because actually Cleveland has
with Joe
the best.
Flacco. You think Cleveland with Joe Flacco can make the Super Bowl?
We talked about it
Flacco
yesterday.
off the couch making the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like, again, data's data, Justin. You mentioned a while ago, you're like, Cleveland did this because they realized they had a Super Bowl winning defense. Cleveland has the number 1 defense in the NFL.
So good.
Which is like, I didn't, I mean. And
he's so good.
by like a decent margin, too. So, like.
He did have an assault on a football field, but.
That did happen.
It did happen. But, God, he is so good. All right. We're going to switch gears. We're going to talk some NBA. Friend of the program, Kurt Heelan, back on the big show next, 620 Rip City Radio. Blazers back in action tonight. They tip off against the Mavericks at 5:30. Will they get 100 points? Will we get some chicken McNuggets? We get our 6-piece chicken McNuggets, please, Blazers. It used to be a foregone conclusion. You get the McNuggets every single time because there was never potential where the Blazers would be on. It's happened a couple times this year. But Blazers in the middle of a rebuild. There is some surprise teams, kind of, on the top of the Western Conference. There's some not surprise team at the top of the Eastern Conference, and we have got a ton of NBA to talk about. And who better than to bring on the big show than friend of the program? You can follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. Kurt Heelan back on the big show. Kurt, welcome back. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back on.
I'm super glad you're here because obviously I got a ton of basketball stuff to talk about. We talk about this all the time. And you being, a food connoisseur like I am, let's eat our vegetables first. All right, let's just talk about the Blazers right away. Let's eat our vegetables first and get that out of the way. It's been a rough stretch for the Portland Trail Blazers, and obviously the last 2 years they went into full tank mode. Now they're in full rebuild mode, and I've mentioned a couple of times, until you're going through it, growing pains don't feel as painful until you're going through it, and it feels kind of that's where the Blazers are right now. Help me, Kurt, find a way to evaluate this team and understand that they are potentially heading in the right direction, because not all rebuilds are equal, right? There's Detroit, and then there's Oklahoma City, right? And I'm hoping that the Blazers are on the Oklahoma City blueprint, but how do you go about evaluating a team that is as young and inexperienced and is in the middle of a rebuild like the Blazers?
First off, one of the best ways to judge how good a restaurant is frankly the vegetables.
That's very true.
Right? I have been to Chris Constantine's Meat Palace in San Francisco, and I'm like, the vegetables might have been the best part of the meal. It's because everything else was. Anyway, I think what you need to see is improvement, is growth, and that's where, Detroit's hard. You keep watching and going, oh, is this really getting better, with all due respect to how okay it's been? Where when you watch the Trailblazers right now, as bad as things have been of late, you do see improvement in the way Scoot has played over, since coming back from injury, but of late, and how he fits with Anthony Simons, and you can start to see a path forward. You can start to see, hey, all right, you've got something there, and what else do we have to do? And, are we going to trade Brogdon and a million other questions? But at least the foundational path has gotten the guys you knew you wanted to ideally keep around and build around have gotten better. And if they're getting better, that's the path forward.
I want to talk about Chauncey Billups real quick because it's a fascinating situation that the Blazers have with Chauncey Billups. Clearly, basketball credentials, basketball knowledge is there, right? You're not an NBA Finals MVP and play that many years in the league without clearly understanding and comprehending the game of basketball, but was brought in with, I think, 1 year as an assistant coach in terms of coaching experience, and then boom, right away, Kurt. Tank 1, tank 2, trade Dame, trade everybody for crying out loud. Here's a 19-year-old point guard rookie, coach him up. And so it's been an interesting 2.5 almost years with Chauncey Billups. It's kind of the same thing with the Blazers in terms of the evaluation and how you evaluate the coaching. Is it kind of the same thing what you were talking about there, seeing growth, seeing some more consistency, because you don't really have an awful lot of coaching background to kind of lean back on with a guy like Chauncey Billups?
No, and I think how the players respond to him matters as well. Mm-hmm. But there are certain coaches who are just better at setting up programs to develop players than others, and you've got to decide where Billups is on that scale. And if he's not where you need him to be, you need to go get a development coach. And I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm not in that. That's a kind of a front office up close decision, because there are other factors. Look, Scoot Henderson's a hard worker, so that's not a concern there. But how hard a player works factors into all that. But yeah, you've got to look at it. If not, you've got to go get, Toronto went and got Darko, in part because he knows how to develop players, and they got Scotty Barnes, and now they got, quickly with him in the backcourt, and hey, we can develop those guys and other guys. If that's part of the plan, then you need a development-minded coach, whether or not that's Chauncey.
Kurt Heelan, NBA writer for NBC Sports, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, vegetables are done. Fantastic, bright, crisp. You brought a lot of positivity with regard to the Blazers, who kind of stink right now. So great job on that, Kurt. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, because there are some fascinating stories going on in the NBA right now. Let's start with Wembanyama. Obviously, the Spurs are slow playing this. The wins are not coming, but every once in a while, Kurt, I've been fascinated, probably like everybody else, in watching this guy when he's on TV, and I watched him last night. It's not every play. It's not even every game. But every once in a while, Kurt, you see something, you go like, boy, I've never seen that before. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. If this guy figures some things out with some consistency and figures out the ins and the outs of NBA basketball with his skill set, boy, I don't know if you even have a comparison in what he could become. It's kind of scary sometimes watching things that he can do, especially some of the things he did last night against Giannis.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. He's still just figuring out how to play the NBA game. He turned 20 yesterday, my God. He's still finding the places on the floor where he can score, which, frankly, is a lot of them. But what his strengths are, what he does well. Obviously, I think it's pretty clear he's got to get physically stronger. Lauri Markkanen pushed him around a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, well, that's not exactly the biggest guy in the league. So there's steps he's got to take, and obviously they've got to build up the team around him. But you're right. I mean, you see that behind-the-back dunk and one thing last night. He had one leg, it looked like a floater form from three-point range the other day, where he just kind of took off on one leg and launched a three-pointer straight on, and it went in, and you're like, how do you, if he's got that in the bag, like, what do you do, considering the handles and the way he runs the floor? So, yeah, they're figuring it out. That you're right, they've slow-played him almost a little too much, and it looked so much better last night with Trey Jones next to him, didn't it? We put a real point guard next to him who can set that whole thing up, and, wow, it looks smoother. So, We'll see if Popovich takes those training wheels off, and they've already not got him playing next to Zach Collins. But you talk about a program where you're like, they're losing a lot of games and they're terrible, but I see the path forward. You see the path forward, right? Yeah.
Well, like I said, kind of in the question, you see things, and it's maybe once a week, and some of that's just playing time with what the Spurs are doing. Yeah. Some of that is, like you said, he's 20 and a day, years old, and has played, exactly 34 games in the NBA, and I don't think he's played that many because he sat out a handful. But every once in a while, that step through off the backboard, improvise, I think Kobe pulled that off. But there's nobody in the NBA that can pull off that move and get a guaranteed easy dunk from the free throw line, throwing it off the backboard, stepping through, or the one dribble from half court, and it's he's already at the rim.
The best part of that one from the dunk the other day was against the Celtics was, I think it was the Celtics. I believe it was Derek White. It was somebody who was running back to defend. Mm-hmm. And you could see him go, well, when he puts the ball down, I'm going to be able to swipe it. And he never has to put the ball down. And the guy just kind of runs through I give up. I don't know how to defend that.
Kurt Heelan, NBA writer for NBC Sports, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. I mentioned kind of the blueprint that the Blazers, I think, hopefully are on, and that's the one of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And talk about, I don't want to say a perfect rebuild, but, best case scenario in terms of a rebuild, right? Because it was 5 years ago when Damian Lillard hit that shot, waved off the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it was like, all right, well, they're going to be done for a while. Traded everybody away, got a bunch of picks, and got a pretty significant player from the Los Angeles Clippers in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And even last year when, Kurt, a lot of people were ripping on the Thunder for their drafting of Chet, and then he's hurt. It's like, oh, all right, here we go. Told you he was too skinny. Told you he was too small. He gets hurt in summer league. He's out for the year. And man, there are some receipts that are coming due on the Chet Holmgren hot takes with regard to the Oklahoma City Thunder, because he's pretty much got the Rookie of the Year wrapped up in 30-some games. But talk about what Oklahoma City has done, the blueprint that they have thrown out there. I still think they got like a gajillion picks left still. But, man, talk about a rebuild that went almost exactly as you want it to go.
Yeah, two things happened there. This is the second time that Sam Presti has gone through a rebuild, and he did it with the, at the time, Sonics version of this team. And that guy's just good at the draft. Some people are just like, oh, Jalen Williams is the guy we want. Chet Holmgren obviously is panned out, like you said, after missing a year, and it's certainly an advantage. I think the other huge advantage, by the way, he has over Wemby is he has a clearly defined role where Wembanyama, they're like, hey, go explore the studio space, man. Like, do whatever you want. We're going to post you up, bring the ball up, take threes, do it. Chet's got a very clearly defined role that he is thriving in. I don't want to take anything away from him, but, like, they've given him a role. And the other part of that was, I can tell you, Doc Rivers in particular, but plenty of people with the Clippers were like, and we really don't want to give up Shea in this deal. We've got to, because you're going to get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and that hasn't panned out as they thought, but you make that trade 10 times out of 10 to bring those guys in at their peak and take the swing. They knew he was going to be good, and they thought, man, we're giving up a multi-time All-Star. They didn't see this. They thought they were giving up. That was the player they didn't want to give up, but they knew they had to. But they didn't think it was going to be this.
Kurt, I'm curious. We had this discussion earlier in the show, and it's fascinating because there's a lot of different ways you can go with this. Who's the best basketball player in the world right now? Because I watched Giannis last night. Boy, he looked really, really good. And then, not to be outdone, Jokic does his Jokic thing, and then Jason Tatum is still there. I got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I picked him at the beginning of the year to be the MVP of the league. LeBron's still in the league, by the way. Like when you look at the NBA right now, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But for your money, who's the best basketball player in the world?
Nikola Jokic, and it's just because you can run so much offense through him. His defense is good enough now. He's obviously not a Giannis level defender, but I think what he brings in terms of lifting everyone up around him because of his passing, how much better look. Aaron Gordon's a really good player, but he looks better. Contavious Caldwell-Pope has a ring with the Lakers. He has been good everywhere. He looks better, right? But you just look better playing next to him, and his defense right now is good enough that it just works. But it's the guy you didn't mention, because Antetokounmpo has got to be in that discussion. And if I were going to choose someone over him right now, it would be Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
that guy's just playing out of his mind right now. And then the 76ers are with him and Tyrese Maxey. I mean, a legitimate threat. Do you think they need one more guy?
I think in the East, because I know a lot of people out here don't like when I bring this up for obvious reasons. We're still very much dealing with our breakup from the summer. But look, Dame and Giannis in the playoff is a problem, right? It's a problem, and you are going to have a perimeter defender, a low post defender, and a transition defender. So you're going to have three guys to deal with two guys, and that's where I think Philadelphia needs that extra guy. And same thing with Boston.
Yeah. Boston, I think, is close. I think that their starting five is there, and the versatility of their wings. But yes, that is fascinating. But that said, Joel Embiid would be in that mix. I mean, he's the MVP. If I've got to next week put up at NBC Sports my mid-season awards, and I'm probably going to have Joel Embiid as the mid-season MVP leader to go back to back. He's just been playing great basketball. So I don't know where you go. You can make a legitimate case for any of those three. I'm not sure. I love Tatum. I'm not sure he's on the same level. Doncic, half a step back right now. Although part of that is just he's been asked to do so much there with Kyrie, especially when Kyrie was out lately. He's looking worn down, but it's understandable. They've got to get that guy. They got to get that guy some help, or he's going to find his help in Miami or another city soon enough.
Kurt Heelan, senior NBA writer for NBC Sports, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Kurt, I'm looking at the Western Conference, and I have been fighting this in this city in Portland for years and years and years. I've been shouted down, but I've been saying I'm tired of hearing about this small market stuff. There is clearly an advantage to being L.A., Boston, Miami, but you look at Milwaukee has found a way to win. Toronto found a way to win. There are plenty of smaller or mid-market teams. And now you look in the Western Conference, in the top 6 right now, New Orleans, Sacramento, Denver, Oklahoma City, Minnesota. The only big market team is the L.A. Clippers, sitting there in the top 6. Indiana's in the mix, and Milwaukee clearly in the mix in the East. Have we seen maybe a bit of a shift in the NBA? And obviously there's always going to be some super teams. There's always going to be superstars on the move. But are we seeing maybe a bit of a shift kind of away from the big money, big market organizations? Because there's a lot of teams in the mix to make the NBA Finals right now from not the biggest cities in the NBA.
This is kind of what Adam Silver wanted, right? You're never going to get NFL-style parity in the NBA just because of the nature of the sport, man. If you have Nikola Jokic, you're just better, right? You're going to win a lot of games in a way that even an elite quarterback doesn't quite bring you in the NFL. That said, I think what they did was, and even more so with this new CBA, and it really kicks in next summer, and you'll see it in Minnesota, where they're probably going to have to trade Karl Anthony Towns because it's not going to be feasible to keep them all together. And you're not going to give up Edwards, and Gobert has bounced back this year too, but that contract is more immovable than Towns. But you're going to be seeing that kind of flattening out of the talent pool a little bit. And then when you do that, it just does become about, hey, you've got to find your guy. That's ultimately the question of Portland, isn't it? Is Scoot that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Is Simon's that guy? Because you've got to find your Antetokounmpo or your Shea or in Sacramento, it's nothing against Domantas Sabonis, but it's Fox. Like, Fox is an absolute all-NBA player right now. You've got to find that guy, then build around them smartly. They've certainly done it in OKC. They're going to be a threat for years. The way those picks keep them affordable. Like, they can pay Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Max Steele, and keep rolling in fresh talent around them thanks to those picks. So the model is changing and it's flattening out the talent pool. But if you've got to get one of those guys, one of those top 15-ish guys, give or take, or 10-ish, depending on what you want to do, and then be smart around them. But I think front offices have gotten better about that. And the only disadvantage really is if you're Miami or I consider Miami a large market because everybody wants to go there.
Yes.
Or the Lakers or whatever. Is you can make a mistake if you're the Lakers and bounce back quicker. You can spend a little more if you're willing. If you've got Steve Ballmer money and you're willing to just ignore the cap and pay the price, you can make more mistakes. But it still flattens out ultimately.
Kurt Heelan, NBA writer for NBC Sports, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One last thing before we let you go. Kurt, I've always had this idea for a TV show, and go with me on this. I have always wanted to take professional golfers and send them to the municipal courses that I play and just kind of see how they would, because we've all been out there playing golf on a municipal course going like, man, what would, Phil Mickelson or what would Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods shoot here? But they also would have to putt on the same bad greens that we have to putt on. That being said, new season of Top Chef is coming up, a show that you and I both love. It's set in Wisconsin. Now, I've had cheese curds and I've had brats, but I've never been to the culinary extents of the great city of Madison or, say, Milwaukee. You may have. But it feels like, hey, let's take the best chefs in the world and let's put them in Middle America, which I'm very excited about. Let's see what these guys can do with cheese, beer, and brats. Where are you on the Top Chef Wisconsin?
I think it's going to be interesting just for that reason. I mean, you're going to do some brat sausage challenges, and I think some wild game, right? Like, let's say, some duck, some stuff like that. I don't know. I have been to Milwaukee, and you do have to go find the Fonzie statue and take a selfie with it if you're old enough to get that reference. But I will say this about the Midwest: as somebody who's trying to look, man, I've gone kind of pescatarian. I don't eat a lot of red meat unless I'm in a in a like I did on Thanksgiving. I did in the finals when I was in Little Havana. I'm like, like I'm not having a Cubano sandwich.
There you go.
But I've cut way back on that kind of trying to eat healthier and cut way back on the both meat and the meat that I'm eating. It'll be interesting to see because when you're in the Midwest, like it is a much more fried, it is a much denser, meatier diet just on the menu everywhere, and it's a little more challenging. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with. Hey, you're going to go to Milwaukee and run a vegetarian challenge? Good luck with that. I'm really. I am curious. I am excited though about the new host. So I think I'm a fan of her. So I think she's developed real chops. I like her fast food shows. So like I think that part's going to go well.
Yeah, the transition, like Padma from to Kristen, like I mean we saw the transition from Jordan and then to Kobe and then to LeBron, and now we're in like it's kind of anybody's league right now. It's going to be fascinating for both NBA and our show. Kurt, hey, thanks so much. Always appreciate you hopping on the big show. Appreciate all your time. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Take care, man.
There you go, Kurt Heelan of NBC Sports. We have got the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio.
It's time for
What I'm saying. She's cringing right now if she's listening. But
So would I get
there are
ready to-
some people sleep and they need human touch. Then there are some people
Sure.
who I'm just like, no, sleep is a separate activity. We may be in the same bed with the same sheets and blankets, but we need to be separate here. Doesn't mean lack of love, but we just need, thankfully, my wife and I are on the same page on that, in the fact that when it's time to sleep, we have our own space. It's just like, you're over there. Poor Crash lost his spot on the bed because we were both just like, it's like, I run hot. And anybody that's watched the YouTube stream, you probably see that I'm pitting out right now. Wore a gray shirt today, not the best shirt. I'm very pitty right now because I just run hot.
So that's what that smell is.
No, I have deodorant
just
on.
kidding.
I have
I'm
deodorant on.
just-
I smell, but I am sweaty. And I just run hot. And like my wife's like, you are a space heater. Like I can't have you. Get so.
But Crash probably added a lot of heat to the bed when he's right with my dog.
That's why he got bounced.
She adds a ton of heat to
Yeah,
my
and
bed.
Crash is like 3 times the size of your dog, I think.
This is true.
That's why he got bounced. Poor
If not
guy.
4 or 5.
But all that being said, I couldn't do the narrow touch and shoulder. So if that means I got to hang the feet off the end, so be it. Yeah. So in this scenario, I think I could sleep with my feet dangling off the end of the bed. I could not sleep in half of the width with also sharing the bed with my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
The answer is easy because bed's yours.
No, I could.
Narrow.
I probably would go narrow. Sometimes I do sleep with my feet off the end of the bed.
Really?
I have.
I'll
yeah.
throw the foot out over the out of the blanket
Yes.
because
So-
like just one little foot can like cool. Because again,
Right.
I run hot. I need it like ice cold in my bedroom.
Right, same here. So
Ice
I was 20, I don't know, not today years old, but like well adult, like 24, 25 when I learned your hands and your feet control your body temperature while you're sleeping. So if you say you cup your hands together, it's gonna be some warm hands.
Isn't that like scientifically proven?
It is. So
Really?
your hands and your feet.
They're-
So if you keep your feet, the 1 foot out,
Yeah, I
or
go
the-
1 foot out.
or a hand or whatever. Supposedly that's supposed to make a difference. I've been like,
Are you
oh.
on your side or like I sleep like a vampire? I am on my back, hands like Dracula.
Yeah, I want to be that way. I wish I could be a back sleeper because I know it would help with my neck pain that I get from time to time. But yeah, like I'm a side and stomach sleeper,
Oh.
and it's not. It's just one of those things, Justin, where I could lay down on my back and I would not fall asleep.
Yeah, see, I can't side. I can't do it. I'm on the back, and the other thing I do, like you said, with the hands are out, and I like kind of pin, which means I steal covers, and like Kelly's just like, she's like forceful because I'm out asleep. She's like, yep, and I'm like, ugh.
All right, I got about 30 seconds for this last one, Justin.
Okay.
Real quick. We'll go on this point. Would you rather subject yourself, you won't die in this scenario,
Okay.
but extreme cold or extreme heat, say you'd have to get in a swimsuit, go jump in the Willamette right now for a
No.
dare, or would you wear like a parka for a couple hours when it's like 100+ degrees in the summer? Extreme hot, extreme cold, where are you going?
Boy, neither one's a good option. I think I could deal with the extreme hot more than the extreme cold.
Really?
I do not do well being cold.
Interesting,
I
okay.
don't do well doing